The house was alive with soft laughter and the sound of old songs drifting through the air. Keanu Reeves had planned the evening quietly, not for himself, but for his mother. She was turning 80, and he wanted her to feel surrounded by warmth, love, and family. No flashing cameras, no Hollywood lights, just a simple party with close friends, relatives, and a few neighbors who had watched their family grow through the years. The living room was decorated with photos from decades past, showing moments of joy and resilience. Keanu moved quietly between guests, offering drinks, sharing hugs, making sure his mother felt cherished. She sat in her favorite chair, her eyes glowing as she spoke with people she hadn't seen in years. Keanu watched her with pride. His life had been full of loss, but seeing her smile made all of it worth it. Yet even in this warmth there was a quiet ache in him. Birthdays, especially those of loved ones, carried both beauty and fragility. Every candle lit was also a reminder of time slipping away. Keanu carried this truth like a shadow. Always close. As the evening grew deeper, the doorbell rang. He excused himself and walked to the door. When he opened it, his breath caught. Standing there was a woman he never expected to see again. It was his ex. Her hair was longer now, touched with soft lines of time, but her presence was unchanged. She held a small box wrapped carefully in her hands, her eyes nervous yet steady. "Hello, Keanu," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of years. For a moment, the room behind him faded. He could only hear the sound of his own heartbeat. "You came," he said finally. Unsure whether it was joy or shock that filled his chest. She nodded gently. "I heard about your mother's party. I thought maybe it was time." He didn't move, didn't invite her in right away. Their history was too heavy, too complicated. She had been part of his life in a way few ever were, and their ending had left scars neither spoke of aloud. Yet seeing her now, holding something with such care, stirred a mix of emotions he had long buried. His mother's laughter echoed from the other room, and he suddenly realized she might be waiting. He stepped aside. "Come in." She entered quietly, her presence turning a few heads as she walked into the room. His mother saw her, and for a brief moment, silence fell. Then his mother's face softened into a smile filled with recognition and something else, relief. "You came," his mother whispered, her voice almost breaking. The woman nodded, stepping forward to hand her the box. "Happy birthday. I brought you something that belonged to your family. I think it's time it came home." Keanu's mother held the box carefully, her eyes glistening with emotion. She looked at Keanu, then back at the woman. This was your grandfather's," she said in disbelief as she slowly opened it. Inside was a pocket watch, worn, but polished. The kind of heirloom that carried generations of memory. Keanu froze. He remembered stories of the watch, how it had been lost decades ago, thought gone forever. His grandfather had carried it during the hardest years of their family's life. A symbol of resilience and time endured. The room filled with whispers, people stunned by the gift. His mother's hands trembled as she lifted it, her tears falling freely now. Where did you find this?" His ex looked down, her voice soft but clear. "It came to me through my family. For years I kept it, not knowing if I should return it, but tonight felt right. Your family should have it back." Keanu's throat tightened. The room around him blurred as he tried to take in the weight of the moment. His mother held the watch close, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Thank you. You don't know what this means." The woman glanced at Keanu, their eyes locking for the first time with truth laid bare. He saw no pride in her gesture, only humility. She had carried this piece of his family's history for years, and now she had chosen to bring it back, not for herself, not for recognition, but out of respect. The guests watched in silence, moved beyond words. And for the first time that night, Keanu realized this birthday would not just be about celebrating his mother. It would also be about facing the past, about letting wounds breathe in the presence of kindness, about rediscovering what it meant to honor the people we love. Yet deep in his heart, questions stirred. Why now? Why had she chosen this night after all these years? to return not just the watch but also herself into his life. The answer, he feared and hoped, would come before the night was over. The pocket watch gleamed under the soft light, its golden surface reflecting the faces of everyone who leaned closer to see. Keanu's mother held it as if it were the most fragile thing in the world, her fingers brushing against the worn edges, her lips trembling as she whispered words only she could hear. Keanu stood by her side, still in shock. His ex had returned, something thought lost forever, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the gift carried more than just history. The air in the room had shifted, heavy with meaning. His mother finally looked up, her voice full of emotion. This watch was your grandfather's heartbeat. He wore it through hard days and long nights, always saying that time itself could not break us. I never thought I'd see it again. Guests nodded, some wiping their eyes, touched by the depth of the moment. The woman who brought it, however, did not bask in the attention. She simply stepped back, her hands folded, her eyes lowered with humility. Keanu's chest tightened as memories of their past began to surface. The laughter they once shared, the nights of quiet conversation, the sudden silence that had ended it all. He had moved forward, but seeing her here, standing so close yet so distant, stirred questions he thought he had buried. He led his mother gently to a seat and then turned back to the woman. Can we talk? Outside? His voice was calm, but it carried weight. She nodded without hesitation. Together they stepped into the garden, the cool evening air wrapping around them. The murmurs of the party faded as they stood beneath the soft glow of string lights hung across the trees. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was not empty. It was filled with years, with things left unsaid. Finally, she broke. I didn't come here to cause you pain, she said softly. I came because I knew this was the right time to return what was never mine to keep. Keanu studied her, his eyes steady but questioning. Why now? After all these years? Why tonight? She drew a breath, her eyes glistening but firm. Because your mother deserves to see it again while she's still here. And because I needed you to know that not everything we lost was gone forever. His heart tightened at her words. There was no bitterness in her voice, only honesty. Yet he felt the old wound between them reopen, not with anger but with longing. You carried it all this time? He asked quietly. She nodded. Yes. I wanted to give it back sooner, but I was afraid. Afraid of seeing you again. Afraid of opening old doors. But when I heard about your mother's birthday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The wind moved, gently through the trees, filling the space between their words. Keanu's eyes dropped to the ground before lifting back to hers. You did the right thing, my mother. She'll never forget this. Her lips curved in a small, bittersweet smile. That's enough for me. But Keanu felt there was more. The way she looked at him. The way her voice carried unspoken weight. It hinted at something she had not yet revealed. Before he could ask, the sound of music floated from inside the house, pulling them back to the reality of the party. His mother's laughter reached them through the open window, reminding him of why tonight mattered most. Yet. Even as he turned toward the house, Keanu knew this reunion was not just about a gift. It was about something unfinished, something waiting to be uncovered. She touched his arm lightly, stopping him before he stepped inside. Keanu, there's one more thing you should know. But not here. Not yet. His pulse quickened, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. What is it? She shook her head gently. When the time is right, I'll tell you. Tonight is about your mother. Let her have this moment first. He studied her face, searching for answers, but found only sincerity. Finally, he gave a small nod. All right, but don't disappear again without telling me. For the first time, her smile carried warmth. I won't. Together they walked back inside, the sounds of joy filling the air once more. But in Keanu's chest, the weight of suspense grew heavier. He knew this night was far from over and the truth she carried might change everything. The party glowed with warmth as Keanu and his ex returned from the garden. His mother was laughing with an old neighbor, the pocket watch resting carefully in her lap like a long-lost treasure finally returned home. Guests were enjoying food, sharing stories, and raising toasts to her life. To anyone else, the evening looked perfect, but inside Keanu, there was a storm. He moved quietly between people, smiling, listening, but his eyes often drifted toward her. The woman who had once held his heart was standing near the window speaking softly to his sister. She fit in as if no years had passed, as if she had always belonged there. Yet the mystery of her words outside haunted him. "There's one more thing you should know, but not here. Not yet. He felt his chest tighten with both curiosity and unease. As the evening wore on, speeches began. Friends stood and shared memories of his mother, how she had helped them in times of need, how her kindness had shaped their lives. Each story deepened the atmosphere of gratitude and respect. Keanu, standing by his mother, felt tears sting his eyes as he realized how much she had given the world. Then, unexpectedly, his ex rose to her feet. The room quieted, all eyes on her. She hesitated for a moment, her hands clasped together before she began to speak. "I know I may not belong here tonight," she said softly, her voice carrying across the room. "But I wanted to say something about this family. Years ago, when I was lost, they welcomed me. They gave me warmth when I had nothing and love when I thought I didn't deserve it. Tonight I brought back the watch because I believe this family deserves to hold every piece of its history. But I also brought something else. Something for Keanu." The room grew still. Keanu's heart pounded, his eyes locking onto hers. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope worn around the edges. "This came to me in a way I still don't fully understand. I wasn't sure if I should ever give it to you, but tonight feels like the moment." She walked across the room and handed it to him. Her hands trembled as their fingers touched briefly. Keanu took the envelope slowly, sensing the weight of it even before opening it. He unfolded the paper inside. The handwriting was instantly familiar. It was his late father's. Keanu froze, his breath catching. His father had passed many years ago, leaving behind words unsaid and wounds never healed. And now here in his hands was a letter. He read the first lines, quietly, his voice shaking. "Dear son, if these words ever find you, it means they survived the years. I was never the father you deserved. I carried my own battles, my own silence, and I know it left you alone in ways I never meant. But I want you to know, even in my failures, I loved you. I was proud of you. And if there is one gift I can give you, it is this. Don't let the past steal the joy still waiting for you. Live, love, and forgive yourself, as I could not forgive myself." Keanu's hands shook as he lowered the paper. Silence filled the room. His mother covered her mouth, her tears falling freely. Guests wiped their eyes, the emotion too real, too raw to hide. His ex stood before him, her gaze steady but tender. "It came into my hands through someone who thought you might never be ready to read it. I've kept it safe all these years, waiting for the right moment. And tonight felt like that moment." Keanu's throat ached with words he could not find. He looked at her, at the sincerity in her eyes, and then at his mother, who nodded gently, urging him to accept this gift, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. His voice was low, broken. "Thank you for bringing him back to me tonight. For bringing me this piece of him." She shook her head softly. "It was never about me. It was always about you finding what you were meant to know." The letter lay against his chest as he closed his eyes for a moment. The pain of loss, the joy of memory, the sting of regret, all collided inside him. But within it all was something else. The faint spark of healing. Yet Keanu couldn't ignore the feeling that she still carried more. The gift of the watch, the letter, her words outside, they were all pieces of something larger. And as the evening wound down, he knew the night had not yet revealed its final truth. The party began to slow as the night deepened, but the energy inside the house remained tender and alive. Small groups of guests lingered, speaking quietly, their voices lowered as if afraid to disturb the fragile emotion that had filled the room earlier. Keanu's mother still clutched the pocket watch, her thumb brushing over it as though it were a living heartbeat. Keanu himself stood near the fireplace, the letter from his father folded carefully in his hands. His ex sat alone near the edge of the room, her face calm but distant as if waiting. Keanu watched her, his chest heavy with unspoken questions. He knew her well enough to recognize that she was holding something back. The watch, the letter, these could not be coincidences. When the last guests finally departed, the house grew quiet. Only the three of them remained, Keanu, his mother, and her. His mother, sensing the weight between them, kissed Keanu's cheek and whispered, "Don't let the night end with silence. Some truths need to be faced." Then she retired to her room, leaving them alone. The living room seemed bigger without the crowd, the flickering candles casting long shadows on the walls. Keanu turned toward her. "All right," he said quietly. "It's just us now. Tell me what you've been holding back." She hesitated, her hands tightening around the strap of her bag. "I didn't want to take away from your mother's celebration, but yes, there's more." Keanu stepped closer, his voice steady but edged with urgency. "Then say it. I deserve to know." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "Do you remember the year we separated? The arguments, the silence that grew between us?" He nodded slowly, his chest tightening at the memory. "I remember too well." Her voice trembled. "There was something I never told you. At the time, I thought staying silent was best, but keeping it has weighed on me ever since." Keanu's breath caught. What was it? She reached into her bag again and pulled out a small envelope. Unlike the one from earlier, this one was newer, untouched by time. She held it out to him, her hand shaking. This was from me. Written all those years ago, but never given. I couldn't face you then. I was too afraid. But tonight, after your father's letter, I think it's time. Keanu took the envelope, his fingers brushing against hers. The room seemed to hold its breath as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, her words flowing across the page in a script he remembered well. Keanu, I'm leaving, not because I don't love you, but because I do. I can't stand by and watch you drown in grief, shutting me out as if my love isn't enough. I don't want to be another burden you carry. I want you to heal, even if it means healing without me. But know this, my love for you is not ending. It will follow you quietly, no matter where you go. Keanu lowered the paper slowly, his eyes burning. He looked at her, his voice rough with emotion. You left because you loved me, not because you stopped. Her tears finally fell, silent but steady. Yes. I thought giving you space was the only way to save you. But in doing that, I lost us. The truth hit him harder than he expected. For years he had believed she had walked away because her love had faded, because he had failed to keep her. Now, to know that she had left out of love, out of desperation to free him from his own shadows, it shattered and healed him at once. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. All this time I thought I wasn't enough, that I drove you away. She shook her head fiercely. You were always enough. It was me who couldn't bear to watch you in pain, powerless to help. The air between them throbbed with years of silence finally broken. Keanu felt his hand reach for hers almost without thought, and she didn't pull away. The warmth of her touch was familiar. Steadying, he whispered. You should have told me. I know, she said, her voice breaking. But maybe tonight we finally stop hiding. They stood in silence, hands entwined, as the candlelight flickered around them. Keanu knew the night was not yet finished. The watch, the letter from his father, and now her confession. They were all pieces of a puzzle leading to something greater. What he didn't know was that the final truth, the one she had carried longest of all, was still waiting to be revealed. And when it came, it would leave not just him but everyone in his family in tears. The night stretched on, the house wrapped in a heavy stillness that seemed to listen to every heartbeat. Keanu and his ex remained by the fireplace, the glow of the last candle casting a soft circle of light around them. His mother had gone to bed, leaving them in the quiet of the old home filled with memories. Keanu's hand was still wrapped around hers. He didn't know if it was instinct or choice, but it felt right, as if the years that had torn them apart had folded back in an instant. Still, questions filled his chest. "You've given back so much tonight," Keanu said slowly, his voice calm but weighted. "The watch, my father's letter, your truth. But I can feel it. There's still something more. What is it you haven't told me yet?" Her eyes lowered, and for a long moment, she didn't speak. He watched her chest rise and fall with a trembling breath before she finally whispered, "Keanu, the reason I stayed away all these years wasn't only because of your grief. It was because of what I was carrying." He frowned gently, uncertain. "What do you mean?" Her eyes lifted to his, wet with unshed tears. "After I left, I found out I was pregnant." The words struck him like a tidal wave. He froze, his grip on her hand tightening as his world shifted beneath him. "Pregnant?" he repeated, his voice low, barely audible. She nodded, her lips trembling. "I wanted to tell you. Every day I wanted to call. But I was terrified. I thought you would hate me for leaving. And by the time I built the courage, too much time had passed. I told myself I was protecting you. But maybe I was only protecting myself from the pain of facing you again." Keanu staggered back a step, his hand slipping from hers. His breath came heavy as images raced through his mind. Her leaving, the years of silence, all now painted in a new, staggering light. And the child? Where is he or she now? A small, fragile smile touched her lips even as tears spilled down her cheeks. "She's here. Tonight." Keanu's chest tightened, his eyes wide. "Here?" She nodded again. "She asked to come, but I wasn't sure if it was the right time. She's in the car outside, waiting. I told her I needed to see if you were ready before bringing her in." The air left his lungs. He pressed a hand to his chest as though steadying the storm raging inside him. "All these years. I had a daughter and I didn't even know." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry, Keanu. I thought I was making the right choice, giving her a life away from the shadows of your pain. But she knows about you. She always knew who her father was, and she wanted to meet you tonight. I just didn't know how to tell you." The room seemed to spin, but within the chaos was a single truth. There was a child, his child, waiting outside. Keanu steadied himself, his voice trembling. "Bring her in." She hesitated, her body shaking with fear. "Are you sure?" "Bring her in," he repeated, firmer this time, though his heart thundered in his chest. She nodded quickly, wiped her tears, and hurried to the door. Keanu stood, frozen, his hands trembling as he waited. Every sound in the quiet house seemed amplified. The soft creak of the door, the faint footsteps approaching. Then he saw her. A young woman, no longer a child, stepped into the room. She had her mother's eyes, but there was something in her expression, gentle, searching, steady, that was unmistakably his. She paused, her gaze locking onto him. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice fragile but full of hope. Keanu felt his knees weaken. His throat burned, his eyes blurred, and in that moment every wall he had built crumbled. He crossed the room, his steps unsteady, and when he reached her, he pulled her into his arms. The years lost could not be returned. But in the warmth of her embrace, Keanu felt something he thought he had lost forever. Redemption, love, and the chance to begin again. Behind them, his ex stood in the doorway, tears streaming, her hands pressed to her lips as she watched the moment she had feared for years unfold in grace. Keanu held his daughter tighter, whispering through broken sobs, "I didn't know, but I'll never let go now. Never again." The house was silent except for their breaths, but in that silence a family was being rebuilt, piece by piece. Yet Keanu knew the night wasn't over. Questions remained, wounds still needed healing, and the future was uncertain. But for the first time in years, he didn't fear it, because he wasn't facing it alone anymore. The silence in the room carried a weight that was almost holy. Keanu held his daughter as though the years between them were being stitched together with every heartbeat. He pulled back just enough to look at her face, memorizing every detail. The curve of her smile, the way her eyes searched his with both fear and longing, the quiet strength in her expression. "What's your name?" he asked softly, his voice breaking with emotion. "Grace," she whispered, her lips trembling. "Mom named me Grace because she said that was what you gave her once, when she needed it most." The word struck him deeply, filling his chest with both sorrow and wonder. "Grace," he repeated, tasting the name as if it were a gift itself. You're perfect." Her eyes glistened. "I've wanted to meet you my whole life. I used to imagine what you sounded like, what you'd say if you ever saw me. I didn't know if you'd want me." Keanu's heart shattered and healed in the same instant. "Want you?" he whispered, his hand cupping her cheek gently. "Grace, I've wanted you without even knowing it. You're my daughter. Nothing will ever change that." Her arms tightened around him again, and he felt the years of separation fall away in that single embrace. His ex, still standing near the doorway, covered her mouth, unable to hold back her tears. After a long while, they sat together by the fireplace, Grace between them. The glow of the last candle flickered as Keanu finally turned to the woman who had once been his everything. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Her voice was small, fragile. "Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd hate me for leaving. Afraid you'd think Grace was the reason for all our pain. But the truth is, she was the only light that kept me going. And I wanted her to grow up free from the shadows that haunted you." Keanu nodded slowly, his hand resting on Grace's shoulder. "I can't change the past, but I can promise you both this. I'll spend whatever time I have left making sure you never feel alone again." Grace smiled softly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "That's all I ever wanted." His ex reached into her bag one last time. "There's something else," she said gently. She pulled out a framed photograph, old but preserved carefully. It showed Keanu's father as a young man, holding the very same pocket watch now resting in his mother's room. On the back were words written in faded ink. "Family is not about the years we lose, but the love we refuse to let go." Keanu stared at the photo, his chest swelling with emotion. He looked at his daughter, then at the woman beside her. "Maybe tonight wasn't just about Mom's birthday," he said quietly. "Maybe it was about bringing everything back together." His ex nodded, her tears softening into a smile. "Maybe it's about healing." The three of them sat there as the house grew quiet, the night outside calm and still. For once, Keanu didn't feel the weight of regret pressing on his shoulders. Instead, he felt the warmth of presence, the love of his mother resting upstairs, the steady presence of the woman who had once left but never stopped caring, and the fragile but powerful bond of the daughter he had just met. He reached for both their hands, holding them firmly. From now on, no more lost years, no more silence. We move forward, together. Grace's voice broke into a whisper. Together. The word echoed in the stillness like a vow. The pocket watch ticked faintly from the other room, its rhythm steady as if time itself had paused to honor the moment. Keanu knew the journey ahead wouldn't be simple. There would be questions, pain to untangle, wounds to heal. But tonight, as his 61st year began, he was no longer alone. The gift his ex had brought had changed everything. It wasn't just the watch, or the letter, or even the confession. It was Grace. It was family. It was the reminder that love, no matter how lost, could still find its way home. And as Keanu held their hands beneath the flickering light, tears fell freely, not of sorrow, but of gratitude.